In fact, just if you would, just describe the model that you employ there, because it means that you're able to not use up vast sums of money, but develop projects through to a point where you bring in strategic partners effectively.
Yeah, essentially we we are project developers. What we identify is we want to be in commodities that have a very strong long-term fundamentals from a demand and supply point of view. And so our exposure that links all of our projects is to the EV and energy storage thematic. And that picks out the commodities, then we pick out the projects that we like. Traditionally, we've been more upstream. What we've now done is pivot towards recycling with respect to lithium. We developed an upstream lithium operation. We're now looking at the ultimate downstream, which is the recycling. We do have an upstream titanium vanadium project, but we're now looking at materials recovery from essentially what is equivalent to a tailings from a mining perspective. So we identify the projects, we build value by taking them through evaluation or exploration if it's needed to make really the size of the pie bigger. And then what we try to do to optimize our outcome from an invested capital and indeed from a risk perspective is to bring in strong partners to operate and finance it essentially. Some offtake, and that enables us to develop the projects at their optimal size, which is quite often difficult for smaller mining companies without excessive dilution. I mean, as you mentioned, we've got a fantastic balance sheet. I think at last quarter it was a little under 100 in terms of total working capital, being cash and investments. It'll be a little less because we've paid an $10.9 million dividend in the latest quarter, so that will naturally go down. But we are very well funded to push these projects through to an optimal size, but then you actually have to get them into operation. And we've done that with a couple of multi-billion-dollar companies developing Mt Marion into what is the world's third largest source of lithium units in the world as of sort of last quarter. And we've got strong partners for the battery recycling in SMS Group. We've got looking at an Indian lithium converting plant with Manikaran, who's India's third largest power trading company, using a lithium feedstock offtake that we retained as part of the sale process. We're working with a Chinese group on Barrambie. And at this stage, we're doing some nickel exploration. We have about 140,000 nickel metal tons. Nickel's obviously going to be a very increasingly important commodity in the EVs as we move to the less cobalt-bearing EV batteries.
No, I think it's fascinating. Why we were attracted to you and why we keep talking to you is it's the you're kind of coming at a slightly unusual angle in the sense that you're in the battery EV thematic, that space, but you're trying to get away from the risk, underground risk, and go above ground on some of these projects like the battery recycling and obviously this vanadium recovery program as well from slag. So it's just kind of interesting also from not only trying to de-risk some of your investments, but the kind of whole ESG component to it as well seems to be very timely at the moment. Is that a big part of your thinking?
Well, look, certainly we're walking the talk in terms of the last two projects and the nearest sort of projects to significant re-rating events are indeed in the recycling and materials recovery as opposed to upstream mining. It is less risky because obviously you don't have to mine the material. I'm not saying it's without risk, but it's a much more quantifiable risk. And it has obviously a lower CO2 footprint because there's no mining and processing upstream involved. And we're recovering high value products and really closing the loop for these supply chains where, societal and government regulations expect best practice and best utilization of finite resources, and recycling of materials, recovery, ticks ethical, environmental, security of supply issues, particularly when you look at Europe that doesn't have a massive amount of domestic supply of these key building blocks to keep powering their EV revolution.